moving along, Reds have talked to Spencer Steer about moving all around back to the outfield, mostly possible second base. Nothing set in stone. Obviously, the Reds like what he did at first base. I love this idea. Steers is just an interesting player because, yes, he was really good defensively at first base, but he didn't hit well enough to be a first baseman. So you're like kind of stuck in this weird conundrum. So for the Reds, this is how I would view it, Mike, and I'm curious your thoughts. I'd view it as we need to get a higher upside bat at first base, but that bat has to produce. If Sal Stewart doesn't produce, then Spencer Steer just plays first base every day because you're going to have the better defense. CES is another candidate that can play first base, but if he doesn't produce, there just can't be a long leash there at first base. That's how I kind of view it. And obviously, I think like Steer out in the outfield is especially maybe a platoon role with Benson. I think would be really great in left field. And when you say platoon role with Benson, I still think he probably ends up starting 70-80% of the time in some capacity as a guy that can move around the field because injuries will happen. But I love this idea. I love that the Reds just aren't going into 2026, at least from the front office standpoint, with Spencer Steer penciled in as the everyday first baseman because he frankly just didn't hit well enough over the course of not just the last year, the last 2 years.
Yeah. And one thing that I think was kind of overlooked a little bit, I think you might have mentioned it at some point. Spencer Steer, I think by the end of the year, really started hitting left-handed pitching a lot better, which was, really where I think he made his bread and he made his way on this team because of his ability to do that in 2020.
Made his way to the big leagues with his
Yeah.
ability to hit left-handed pitching.
Right. So, if that is able to come back around to where we think is level, which is, somebody that can hit lefties well, I think there absolutely is a spot. I don't love his defense in the outfield. I also think whenever you're moving guys around like that, it's tough. But we also saw just like a drastic improvement from him at first base. Now, obviously, first base and outfield, two different things, right? But who's to say if we say, hey, we want you to continue to get better at outfield, we don't see an improvement out there in left field. So, I love having somebody that you can have the flexibility to do this. I think of Ben Zobrist on those 2020 or 2016 Cubs teams, right? You could put him wherever on the infield and maybe even, in the outfield, and you can feel comfortable about him being there. I don't, feeling comfortable in left field is maybe not something that I would feel at the moment, but I could get there with Spencer Steer. So I like having that chess piece to move around. I think it makes things easier for giving people days off, which Francona has been pretty vocal about. Hey, maybe I needed to do a little bit more of that this year. So having that flexibility, I think, is something that is a very valuable asset to this team.
Am I reading too much into this, Mike? When I see the words Steer possibly playing second base, my head goes, that means Gavin Lux probably isn't on the Cincinnati Reds in 2026. Am I reading too much, or is that a pretty big hint right there?
Yeah, maybe. That's I didn't even thought about that. But yeah, maybe he's, all of a sudden becomes the backup second baseman if a certain light hitting DH is moved.